we are live, by the way. We have a little bit of a lag issue that is happening. It is completely on my end. I may be the worst host today ever, but Jerry will be happy to drive if this goes off the rails. But so Jerry, you literally jumped from one event to the other. You just popped in here. You were doing another panel. Our friend Michael's event.
Michael Marley put together an event on AI and really bringing together over 2 days a broad spectrum of folks who have something to say about the AI issue. So Keith Sunderland, for example, from EEOC will be on tomorrow morning. Kevin Wheeler did a keynote kickoff, if you will, kind of to set the stage, and he did a very good job. There were 3 or 4 key areas about how fast it's coming at us, and the degree to which we all as professionals need to upskill ourselves on some of the issues that probably will change our roles and jobs. So I thought that was pretty cool. The one thing that I added to I guess the conversation early on was the work that we did with CXR, both talent acquisition leaders and some of the suppliers of services, where we came to agreement in the fall about the kinds of questions that we all as employers should be asking of vendors and suppliers about their integration of AI into their solution or their invention of a whole new way of recruiting because of AI. And, the hype is there, clearly, and some of it's defensible. But the point is, employers should not automatically be sitting there going, oh, yeah, sure. AI, that's cool. It's a nice, bright, shiny object. Let's stick that up and make something happen. So we have 22 questions that we came to agreement on, and basically CXR is basically saying, look, let's offer it as a format that you can add to your RFI or RFP form. You can alter it if there's special questions you want, and what we'll do is learn from what goes on and keep improving it. But right now, people need to have some kind of help, if you will, in terms of asking some of these questions. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Laura, we're excited to have you on because you're talking to us about implementing AI in, I think, what many folks are trying to call like a practical way, right? A way that would be found useful in the TA workstream or TA decision making. Do you guys have at Spectrum? Do you have any type of sort of intake form that sort of challenges the claims that AI vendors or service providers?
Question. No, we don't have a standard one as of right now. And most of the AI, except for one exception that I have, I had the vendor and the AI came after. And so I was just able to talk with them directly, essentially, about their AI offerings.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense. And I will say there is a flaw in all of this, and that is, while we are pretty much in agreement about the questions, we're not in agreement about what a good answer is. And fundamentally, I think that's you got to smile around that, because it will be something that evolves over time and take into account in terms of the context of what you're using AI for. And I think people get that, but it also means you got to constantly be learning.
All right. Well, we're going to jump into it. We got about 15, 20 minutes to go. Are we ready to get started?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the CXR channel, our premier podcast for talent acquisition and talent management. Listen in as the CXR community discusses a wide range of topics focused on attracting, engaging, and retaining the best talent. We're glad you're here.
All right, everybody. I have to assume we're on. I'm operating on like a 2-second delay. I feel like on old radio. I think maybe that was 7 seconds. But I want to welcome you to the Recruiting Community Podcast. We do a weekly live stream. We are on the YouTube, the Facebook, the LinkedIn. If you're joining us live on the LinkedIn, you can jump into the chat. So you can say hi to our guests today. If you've got questions, you can throw those in there as well. And if you're interested, if you want to listen to this again, once we throw it up on any of the various places you may subscribe or listen to the podcast, you can find that and all our previous episodes, all 400 previous episodes, at cxr.works/podcast. Also, as a reminder, a little bit of housekeeping. This is an ad-free labor of love that Jerry and I do. Nobody pays to be on the show. Everybody here is here because we think they have something interesting to share, interesting to talk about. And our guest today is, of course, not excluded from that. I am your host, Wayne, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Garth as my co-host. Garth, glad to see you.
One of these days, you got to tell me who I'm going to be next so that I can go get the hat that fits that framework, But
if I had known there'd be costume applied, I would most definitely tell you in advance who you're going to be. Nothing beats your Arnold with your Arnold impersonation.
Arnold.
Arnold. Should we bring our guest back?
Yes.
Okay. Ridiculous. All right. We're going to welcome Laura Fields from Spectrum. And Laura, let's get you in here. There you are. Hi, welcome back. So, Laura, for those who don't know who you are, who maybe haven't had the pleasure of meeting you or engaging with you in some way, can you give us kind of a quick escalator pitch? Who's Laura Fields? Why should they be listening to what you have to say today about AI and TA?
Okay, so my name is Laura Fields. I am currently sitting in Charlotte, North Carolina at Spectrum main offices and headquarters. So I here am responsible for TA operations as well as selection and assessment. The selection and assessment comes because my educational background is in IO psychology, and I've been working in the selection field since a year that begins with a 19. And so I'll just leave it at that. And so that's essentially, because I am a selection person, that's where my expertise is now kind of being adapted, right? We've always thought about selection with interviews, assessments, and other tools like that. And that knowledge now is kind of pivoting and being applied to AI.
I love that. I love that. Well, we're super grateful that you took some time to join us today.
Thanks.
So, Laura, well, let's jump right in. I mean, I'd be really interested to hear if you can share sort of some insights or takeaways, like specifically to how maybe Spectrum is integrating AI in recruiting operations. Like what aspects of maybe the hiring funnel have seen the most improvement from an AI partnership, or I don't want to say AI intervention, but connecting that technology to the process?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me quick kind of preface this by saying anything that we have in our funnel, at least at this point in time, is an automated decision-making AI and not generative AI. So I have ideas and thoughts around generative AI. And as of right now, where I'm seeing the biggest lift is early on in the funnel, right? Like 5 years ago, candidate self-scheduling with the AI technology that integrates with calendars. That was a huge lift off of recruiters and RCs to take phone screen and interviewing scheduling off of their plates. And now we're attempting to do the same thing with early stage screening, either with AI in assessments or AI in resume reviewing. So the earlier you are in the funnel, when you have more people, more data, more information to sift through, that's where AI can really give you your biggest lift.
Cool.
Yeah. And do you oh, sorry, that was myself. I think we have a little bit of echo. I guess I'd ask, when you're playing in that space, and I think, a lot of TA leaders we talk to are really interested in that. They're interested. I want to talk a little bit more about the RFI, RFP template that we've put together with the TSC and several of our corporate members. But there's been I think there's a lot of concern and a little apprehension about when we talk about just, implementing AI or turning on AI or making decisions with AI. So can you like specifically within those funnels, is there a challenge that maybe you encountered when implementing that at Spectrum? And can you share that and how you maybe address that challenge? Or was it just like you just threw it in there and damn, like candidates, they were a popping?
Don't tell legal that part.
Yeah.
So I would say right now we have AI embedded in some of our assessments, like for our chat agents, right? As far
Okay.
as they know, they're doing a simulated chat within the VJT or virtual job tryout and that assessment. And the AI behind the scenes is reading their response and rating it against rating scales, just like a human would. So my challenge and hurdle there was getting hiring managers to say, we'll release control and we'll let the machines do that. And so for me, winning that and clearing that hurdle, it was all about transparency, right? So I would show them how like when a score differed from how a human scored it versus AI, show them and say, okay, which one do you think is right? And then they're like, oh, I guess I got to give the computer this one on that. So full transparency was how I got the AI scoring written chat as well as asynchronous interviews. We've had really good success with that as well.
I love that. And I think change management is a piece that often gets overlooked for almost any project in TA. I think we sort of overestimate how easy it might be to implement something. And you allude to a challenge with hiring managers sort of getting on board. Was it an issue of picking an entire function to do this with, or did you sort of do it in small pilots with your favorite hiring managers who might be able to help sort of sell that? How do you progress it through? Spectrum's not a small organization. How do you do something like that at scale?
Exactly right. We picked a function, right? We were standing up chat agents. We hadn't had chat before. The lift of and the interest in the applicant pool, right? In these chat roles, we get the highest applicant volume for those, right? So we have both an influx of candidates and a limited amount of time then. So the manual work of scoring the writing, because what the hiring managers know is they know they don't want to hire somebody who hasn't been vetted for written communication.
Yeah.
So they know that. And the recruiters know they don't want to do the work. And so there's parts that both of them are really attached to that they want. And then you just have to anticipate those concerns. And like I said, the biggest thing is you can't just come and then through the magic of AI, here are the scores. You have to be really, really, really transparent with it.
A couple things that occur to me that I think are really important. One is obviously Spectrum has invested in someone like yourself, for example, who has the kind of background and knowledge of dealing with service suppliers who have assessments so that you can engage them and challenge them. Forget the AI part for a moment, but in terms of whether or not the assessment is reasonable to the candidate themselves, sort of a face validity, whether or not there's any relationship with successful people doing the job, concurrent validity. And I assume you're in a position to long-term look at the predictive capabilities of this assessment in defending that you would use it in selection. So to have that as a resource and a capability is kind of paramount, I think, to successfully improving your ability to select.
Number one, would you like a job?
No,
because you
no.
can come
Jerry's
here.
got a job. Calm down, Laura.
He says he's got a job. He pays me for it, but I really I'm beyond job right now.
Yes, the background in selection science, the IO psychology background, education, and practical experience, I think it's 100% necessary. Whether you're bringing a consultant in just to help you select and stand something up, or investing in a team that's on site, managing these programs throughout the year. So I do think that expertise is necessary.
And I'll bet that with AI, the generative AI that's coming, that's going to raise it to another level and layer which will require the IO psychologist and or whoever else is representing, the knowledge base internal to the company, a whole new arena, if you will, of issues that you have to deal with in terms of, even for an algorithm, if the assessment itself is evolving by learning from from the responses of the candidates as they go, you'll want to know how that continues to change and improve the capabilities of assessment, or you're going to end up wanting to turn it off. I mean, it's not static anymore.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I a lot of times refer to, like, my role is, if I was at the party, I'm the person who's popping all the balloons and saying, like, no more fun to be had with this. When hiring managers come to me with the great ideas of what they want to do, and I'm like, ooh, no, that's not a great idea. I thought I, had all of my talk tracks down pretty well, and then generative AI had to come around, right? Because I think that, right, I'll be popping a lot of balloons around that. And I probably already have with some vendors, because Jerry, what you mentioned about the algorithm and the machine learning as it goes on, I am intensely concerned about when it's learning and when it's changing. I don't want AI that is changing how it makes decisions within a requisition. I don't want AI that is changing how it's making decisions and learning without me taking a look at it and making sure that, that adverse impact against subgroups is also being taken into consideration, right? That there's job relatedness that I'm seeing there. So, yeah.
Right. So there are so many things now that AI is impacting. Some are a little bit more risky than others. And obviously, when you start getting involved in selection decisions, that's where you have some of the highest risk, I would imagine.
Exactly right. Yep. And in fact, right now, Spectrum, we are not, like, AI is not making any decisions. It's making recommendations, right? That humans are then reviewing and going through, right? So there's still human involvement, right? It's like we're dipping a toe and we're starting out, as opposed to, just running and doing a full cannonball right into there.
I love it.
It's like sending a small child into the kitchen for the first time ever to make their own sandwich. I don't know why that's sticking with me. Do I go in with them, or do I just go in after they've made the sandwich and see what happened?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So, Laura, you mentioned a little bit about the vendor that your organization is using, right? The technology that's being used there, and how you're applying it, how you acquired it, that sort of thing. I'm not looking for you to go into too much depth there, but I'm wondering that, based on what you've learned and a little bit of what you shared here, when it comes to choosing vendors for AI solutions. So when you are now, if you were going to do this again, if you're looking for selecting AI for this particular component of TA or this particular process, right, within TA, what criteria do you think at this point you would prioritize?
So one of the things that I always do is I always go to look at the vendor's leadership on their website. Who are we? What about us? And I look at the kinds of individuals who are leading the organization and what their backgrounds are. If I purely have data scientists and economists, I'm always a little bit suspect, right? I'm looking for somebody with an IO psychology background in some type of role. Most AI companies have caught on now and tout their AI as being ethical. That's something that I dig really, really deep into.
Okay.
And you can usually just ask a couple of upfront questions and get an idea. Again, even learning and changing people's scores or rank order within a requisition, man, I found that out within like 5 seconds of talking to one vendor. And I was just like, okay, it's an automatic no in my head, right? So
right. So how would you, and I'm going to lead us to, we were talking about this in the intro a little bit, because we've got a document that we want to share and talk a little bit about, but how would you assess whether a solution is going to be a right fit for your specific needs? Is there a gauntlet you run them through, or is it early days and it's still about your experience and connecting with the vendor?
There's definitely a gauntlet of questioning. I've also noticed now there's a real start in vendor offerings, companies who are out there offering to help companies do this. Vero
Mhm.
AI is one that comes to mind, right? There's somebody that you can hire, big brains there, and they can kind of help apply. They take their big brains and point them at the big brains of the vendors, right? And figure things out. But I think that, from my point of view, it's almost exactly the same as vetting an assessment vendor, with like some slightly different questions, right? Like you always want to know what data is going in, like what data is the AI using, right? To Jerry's point, how is the AI learning? When is it learning? How is that learning being checked? That's another really big thing, right? What are my options? This may seem strange, but like, what are my options for checking the AI? Like, how can I run a manual process alongside of it and see how that aligns with what the AI is doing? And once you kind of clear all of those, I would consider, like legal and ethical concerns and everything like that up front. Then you can get into the effectiveness, right? And that's kind of like the weird thing here is we have so much to vet up front that then I think that part of how effective is it can be lost. And I don't know how much yet we as companies are always holding vendors responsible for giving us an effective solution as opposed to, one that meets all legal and regulatory requirements.
And it's us that has to hold them responsible, because if we don't, and there is a problem, someone else is going to be holding us responsible. And so the balance really has not gone to court yet to determine who is going to be the at fault party, if you will. But the first one with the most money is going to be the company for sure. So it behooves really folks inside of corporations to either invest in folks who have the kind of background, Laura, that you have, or partner with individuals who can help them to figure out what the good answers are.
Yeah, because the courts haven't told us yet, right, what those good answers are yet.
You know.
There's a whole other conversation about faith in the courts right now, but that's different. Jerry, we've done a little bit of work on that front to help employers with an RFI, RFP sort of template. Right. We've done this with 20 HR technology and TA technology vendors in the space that we've partnered with. We've done this with a handful of our corporate leaders. It is a living document that anybody can download. I'll put the link up here in a second. Living document that anybody can get a hold of and use on their own. We're releasing it under open commons. But can you talk a little bit about that journey and what that is?
Well, I think the issue is, as we've been talking, this is a moving kind of event, the whole generative AI kind of thing. So we're talking about conversations that we had in the fall, really up until January. And literally, it's been a week, this past week, that we published this document. And already, there's some really good data coming back that suggests to us that there will continue to be probably quarterly evolution of how we phrase these questions. And I do believe that there's a level of expertise that employers need to have in terms of asking the question. You're going to get a response, and now knowing that response might be a red flag for the solution, or it might be an opportunity for go, or as Laura just pointed out, there should be priorities that you may have. So there's some questions you may want to ask first and foremost relative to ethics or something else that would help you decide whether to go to the next level. And I do think it's going to take about a year or two for some of these practices to evolve to a standard, if you will. But I think we're committed long term to trying to improve the industry and advance our profession. So what we want to do is see if we can do more with a collective voice of folks like Laura and others who are learning as we go.
Yeah, for those who want to grab it, if you're listening, not watching, the URL is cxr.works/AI RFIP. So it's AirFIP. AirFIP. We're really happy with that AI RFIP. But Laura, would you agree with that? You think it's 2 years till we get to a standard?
At least, right? If you think about it, IO psychologists are still operating off of standards that were written in 1978. Right. These aren't going to be, there've been, lots of calls for revisions and everything like that. Right. So it is slow moving. And right now it's the states that are driving it. And it's hard to develop a set of standards when states are driving a lot of this and they have a lot of different requirements.
And obviously different countries as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Laura, let me ask you, what would be some generative AI solutions you think vendors should be focusing on if they're just gonna blow up the space, right? Or the flip to that, are there any sort of overly hyped offerings that you think organizations should maybe watch out for?
The overhype all goes to, have it write your job descriptions. Fine, great. Like that's such a throwaway now, right? I'd like to really encourage vendors, unless they are in the selection and assessment space, to stay out of it, right? I don't want my ATS to prioritize resumes for me, but what I might like my ATS to do is to customize communications that go out to candidates, right? So whether it's a decline email that's going to them, whether it's an update about how the process is going, at what point we are in the requisition and pushing that out to people who are in active statuses. A lot of these ATSs have tough UIs, right? I'm not the first person to break that news. So how can it help recruiters do their job? How can it suggest what the recruiter should be going into the system and taking a look at and the actions that they should be taking? So I would actually really like the generative AI vendor solutions to focus on candidate experience and recruiter experience and just stay away. Don't suggest interview questions to me based on a resume because then everybody's getting different interview questions and now I've got a consistency issue, right? So all HR technology, play in your appropriate lane right now is my recommendation.
Yeah. Well, I love that. More of an assistant than an authority.
Right.
Putting them in that role. And I have to tell you, we play with it all the time. We've been playing with it for months and months now. It would not surprise me if an interview question out of a chat GPT or Copilot or something came back and said, ask them what kind of lizard they want to be. Like it's just not to a point where I would trust it to make any big decisions or just feed me mindlessly, my discussion points.
Worked at Geico, right? They pick that up in your resume somehow, then, suggest that, right? I mean, that's the thing is you have to get your hands dirty with AI, right? Like it's once you realize that, a lot of these sourcing tools that tell you that they're focusing on diversity, that's maybe the one that I say that is maybe the most overhyped and sending you diverse candidates, right? Based on open source information that they're aggregating from the web. Do you know how many people have been recommended as Latinx leads who are from Columbia, South Carolina?
More than ideal.
Made a little bit of a mistake. Columbia with an O and Columbia with a U, but
Yeah. I'm sorry, Dave. I can't hire that candidate. Yeah. Well, Laura, let me. You've been a wonderful guest, super informative, and I love the conversation. We're gonna make sure we keep you involved in the work that we're doing. But let me ask you, and we ask this of all our guests before we close out, if you were gonna write a book about this topic, right, the state of things today, what would the title of the book be?
The title of the book, I think it's going to be Alice's Adventures in AI Wonderland.
I love it. Red button, blue button, that kind of thing. Yeah, red
Exactly.
key, blue key. Okay. And then Laura, present company excluded. Who would get the first signed copy of your book?
It's going to Jen Tracy.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. She sponsors all of my ill-advised mushroom-fueled adventures with AI.
I love it.
The mad scientist benefactor. I love it. Good stuff. Well, Laura, thank you so much. Much gratitude for you joining us today. We know you're super busy and you cut some time out. We're super grateful. Lots of comments on the side. We'll make sure to follow up with those if we missed any. I think we're ready to cut out of here. Are we ready to call it a day? All right. Everybody giving me the quiet thumbs up. So that's appreciated. All right. It's cxr.work/podcast if you're interested in seeing what's next. Everybody else, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the CXR channel. Please subscribe to CXR on your favorite podcast resource and leave us a review while you're at it. Learn more about CXR at our website, cxr.works, facebook.com and twitter.com/careercrossroads, and on Instagram @careerxroads. We'll catch you next time.